Poor farmer discovers infertile woman nurturing twins. Her incredible story changed everything. Jackson had always been a humble farmer, toiling away every day on the land that his family had worked for generations. At 35, he wore his sweat and dirt like a badge of honor. But as he looked over his fields of wilting crops, a heavy cloud of worry loomed over him. The gap between wealthy landowners and hard-working men like him felt insurmountable, and every season brought fresh struggles. On this particular day, he needed supplies from the local market. As he pushed through the weathered doors, the chatter of the townsfolk faded into the background as he spotted her Emma. Wrapping her arms protectively around two tiny twins, her fierce spirit radiated in a town that often turned its back. Emma, who once sparked whispers of misfortune, now commanded attention with a maternal warmth that seemed to defy her own struggles with infertility. Jackson's heart tightened as he witnessed her nurturing touch, cradling the infants as if they were the most precious things in the world. It hit him hard, the sheer beauty of a mother's love even when society said she didn't have the right to care. For a moment, he forgot his own troubles. Jackson felt an inexplicable urge to help her, to support the fight against the town's judgments that surrounded her like storm clouds ready to pour rain on any sparks of hope. He could hear the whispered doubts around him. What is she doing with those babies? Who would trust her? But all he saw was a woman, strong and determined, defying odds even in the face of cruel gossip. That day, he decided to step in. Jackson became entwined in Emma's life, volunteering to help with the twins while juggling his farm. The bond between them grew, entwined with shared laughter and sleepless nights. But with each moment, he witnessed the raw prejudice she faced, a single mother in a town rooted in archaic values. Some townsfolk rallied behind her, but others clung to judgment. Jackson felt the tension tightening around him like a noose. Would lending a hand to Emma mean risking his own standing in the community? Just when things seemed to be settling, disaster struck. The twins fell gravely ill, and Jackson's heart shattered as he saw their tiny bodies fight for life. He rushed to help Emma, desperate to comfort her as the town's whispers grew louder. The weight of his own family's expectations created a tug-of-war in his heart. Would he risk losing them in the fight to save those innocent lives? In a climactic community meeting, emotions soared like sparks in dry grass. Jackson stood before the crowd, feelings swirling inside him like leaves caught in a whirlwind. The air crackled with tension as he spoke passionately about empathy and unity. Just when he thought he was making progress, a shocking revelation erupted from the back, a revelation that sent tremors through the community, pulling everyone back into the depths of their biases. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jackson found himself standing at the precipice of transformation, questioning everything he once knew about family, community, and love's endurance. Would the town embrace this unexpected shift before it was too late, or would his courageous stand tear them further apart? Doubts danced through his mind, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The revelation that echoed through the room felt like a stone thrown into calm waters, sending ripples of discomfort splashing across the faces gathered. Jackson could see glances exchanged, suspicion weaving itself into the fabric of the conversation. A whisper surged, growing louder, filling the space with an urgency that pressed against his chest. Someone in the back had shouted, "Those twins aren't even hers. She's pretending." The word struck like lightning, igniting the fears that lay dormant in the hearts of the townsfolk. Jackson felt his pulse quicken. Emma's heart, already fragile, teetered on the edge of despair. He turned to her, seeing the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the pain of judgment slicing through her resolve. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice carrying a desperation that begged for understanding. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just fighting for Emma. He was standing up for the very principles he believed in: community, love, acceptance. He took a step forward, the weight of the room pressing upon him. "Do you all honestly believe this?" he continued, his voice trembling with conviction. "Is our town so bound by tradition and fear that we can't see the love that is right in front of us?" He scanned the crowd, eyes locking onto familiar faces layered with doubt. "What if these children have found their way to us in a way we can't comprehend? Would you deny them the warmth of a loving home just because of how they arrived?" The crowd was still, absorbing his words. Jackson's heart raced, each beat a declaration of his faith in Emma and in the community. But lurking behind the silence, he could sense the old biases trying to resurface. He could almost hear the whispers of "not in my town," a painful reminder of how hard it was for people to change. Emma rose beside him, her hand trembling but resolute. "They may not be my blood," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor underneath. "But they are my heart. I may not have given them life, but I am giving them love. Isn't that what really matters?" A few heads nodded, but others remained rigid with disbelief. Jackson noticed the farmers, the ones with their backs bent and hands calloused by the land, beginning to murmur amongst themselves. "What about our children?" one man called out suddenly. "What kind of future would we want for them?" Jackson felt his stomach twist. He understood their fears. They were rooted in the love of their own children, the desire to keep them safe. But he also knew that fear could become a cage, one that kept them from embracing true compassion. "This world is already so divided," he said softly, letting his heart guide him. At time we break down the walls instead of building them higher." A shift occurred then, an almost electric buzz in the atmosphere. Maybe it was a glimmer of realization among the younger generations, those who had seen more than their parents. Hope flickered in Jackson's chest. Perhaps they could turn the tide, yet there still remained a daunting shadow distorting the hopeful light that dared to shine through. Emma's eyes met his, and he could see her fragile hope hanging in the balance. Jack knew the hardest part was yet to come. They had to face the toughest opponents, the town's unwritten laws and prejudices that had thrived for far too long. As the murmurs began to rise and the room vibrated with unresolved tension, a familiar voice broke through. "I know who the real mother is." The bold accusation rang out, drawing gasps and wide-eyed stares. Just as Jackson prepared to respond, a deep silence reclaimed the room, and all eyes turned toward the source of that truth. Who had dared to lay bare such a claim? The next moment felt pivotal, each second stretching into an eternity as the crowd braced itself for the unraveling. Jackson's heart thundered in his chest, caught in equal measures of dread and anticipation. Would this revelation spark a movement toward understanding, or would it tear apart everything they had just begun to build? The room held its breath, every eye fixed on the source of the voice. It was Molly, an outspoken woman known for her sharp tongue and an unyielding sense of justice. Jackson's stomach tightened. He hadn't expected her to step into the fray. "I know who the real mother is," she repeated, her voice steady, as if anchoring them all to something solid. "What do you mean?" someone in the front row called, a mixture of confusion and curiosity flaring up. Jackson's heart raced. He needed to understand Molly's intentions. Could this turn out to be a stepping stone, or a stumbling block? Molly took a breath, her eyes sweeping the crowd, gauging their reactions. "Emma has opened her heart and home to those children. Isn't that what a mother does? Isn't that what motherhood means? It means nurturing, loving, and providing a safe space for those who need it most, not just sharing blood." A murmur spread through the crowd. Jackson watched as some nodded along, faces softening, while others appeared ready to dig their heels in. There were waves of confusion and doubt, but the moment felt like a small ember of hope flickering to life amidst the darkness of skepticism. "So you're saying it doesn't matter where they came from?" a voice called out hesitantly. "That she just gets to claim them because she wants to?" Molly stepped closer to the crowd, her demeanor steady. "The world we live in isn't fair, and families come in many forms. Emma embodies love in its purest sense. Those children know that. They feel it every day. A few in the crowd exchanged reluctant glances, questioning their own biases. Emma caught Jackson's eye, her expression a mixture of hope and fear, as if she was standing on a precipice. Emma takes care of them, Molly continued, her voice echoing through the hall. She teaches them, plays with them, comforts them when they're scared. In my book, that makes her a mother no matter how those children came to her. Jackson could see the slow but stubborn shift in mood, the slow gathering of support. It was tenuous, though, like ice waiting to crack. Some hearts began to thaw, but others remained frozen, bound by fear. A man stood up, his brow knitted with concern. But what about the future? Those boys deserve to know their roots, don't they? Every child deserves love first, Jackson answered, his voice rising above the din. If you were to ask the twins what they want, they wouldn't say they want to know who their real mother is. They would say they want to be loved and safe. Isn't that what we all want for our kids? The crowd fell silent as each person reflected on how unconditional love shaped their lives. The tension was palpable, but Jackson felt a surge of possibility in the air. Molly added, change doesn't come easy. It's uncomfortable. But we have to ask ourselves, what kind of community do we want to be? One that turns away from love? There it was, the question hanging heavy in the air. Would they step forward together into understanding, or retreat back to their fears? A woman in the back whispered, what if the past doesn't allow us to embrace this? Jackson's chest tightened. Everything was at a tipping point. With one wrong word, the entire alliance they began to craft could crumble. As he scanned the crowd, preparing to speak again, he noticed a group of teenagers, eyes wide, gripping their parents' hands tightly. In that moment, he knew they were the future. Their faces would mold the town's destiny, and he needed to reach them. Look, he started, his voice more passionate now. What do we want to teach our children? That love conquers all, or that fear keeps us apart? We can show them a better way. Just then, the unexpected happened. An elderly man stood up, cracking the silence like an old branch. I've seen this town live in fear too long. He boomed, his voice resolved but weary. Jackson's heart swelled, the warmth of hope igniting his resolve. It wasn't just about Emma anymore. It was about freedom. The freedom to embrace compassion, but as the murmur started again, growing louder with anticipation, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was still brewing, one that could change everything in that room forever. What would happen next? Would the seeds of change take root, or would fear douse their fledgling hopes before they could take flight? Jackson could feel the tension ripple through the crowd, each individual absorbing the weight of the elderly man's declaration. The air thickened with an intensity that felt almost electric. Faces that had been wrought with skepticism now flickered with curiosity and a tinge of hope. Fear is a cage we build for ourselves, the old man continued, his voice a raspy echo of years lived in the shadows of uncertainty. I've buried too many friends who refused to stand up against it. He raised a trembling finger, pointing at the assembled crowd as if trying to push against the walls they had constructed over the years. We're too caught up in what we think we know, rather than what we can become. Jackson's heart raced. Here was a man who had seen hard lives, lived among the forgotten, yet still believed in the goodness people were capable of. The man's fierce light shone a path through the darkness. It ignited a quiet fire within Jackson. Over the clamor of the room, he saw the flickers of newfound determination. Emma was still standing beside him, her anxiety palpable. Jackson turned to her, ready to offer comfort, but she stepped forward, compelled by the shift in the atmosphere. The crowd's attention drifted towards her, their expressions varying from skepticism to cautious intrigue. I didn't ask to be a mother. I didn't even think I could be, she said, her voice ringing sweet but strong. But those boys came into my life, and I loved them as fiercely as I've ever loved anyone. They've taught me what family truly is. Her eyes glistened, reflecting the crowd's wide-eyed faces, each moment unfolding in quiet reverence. But we all have histories. I can't deny that, she added, the warmth in her voice cooling slightly, as if a window had been opened to a chilling breeze. But isn't it time we allow those stories to shape new beginnings instead of shackling us to the past? Silence fell again, more profound this time. Jackson watched a few people nodding slowly, grappling with the truth of Emma's words. There was something liberating about acknowledging pain and joy sometimes existing side by side, both deserving to be felt and embraced. A woman in the back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, spoke up hesitantly. You mean, it doesn't matter what mistakes we've made? That we can still find a way to love? Jackson's heart caught in his throat. He noticed others leaning in, listening intently, as if a door had been cracked open to a darkened room. Yes, Emma said softly, her voice a soothing balm. Love is messy, beautifully imperfect. It doesn't simply come from blood, it's forged through care, sacrifice. It's about building a safe haven for those who need it. Isn't that true motherhood? The crowd domesticated its earlier apprehension. Jackson could feel belief swaying in the air like a breeze, soft yet persistent. But real change would only come if they were willing to look beyond their fears, to embrace the uncharted territory of compassion. Suddenly, an unexpected voice thundered in the back, once again a man Jackson had recognized from the council, tight-lipped and wary during these discussions. And what happens if we fail them? The question cut through the warm resolve, a jagged reminder of the fear still clinging to that hope. What if history repeats itself? Jackson felt the chill again sweep across the room, their stubborn fears pulsating to life once more. Emma squared her shoulders. Then we learn. That's what love does, it perseveres, adapts. It doesn't fear mistakes, it learns from them. Her fierce determination radiated, igniting something deep within the crowd. You don't get a second chance at love, Jackson added resolutely, locking eyes with the man who had spoken. But you can choose to step forward. Will you risk it? As murmurs began to bubble again, Jackson sensed the undertow of emotion's defiance against a past marred by mistrust, and a hope shimmering like the sun breaking through dark clouds. But with all that hope swirling around, a sharp intake of breath from Emma drew his attention back to her. What is it? He asked. Gently, sensing another shift in her already fragile veneer of confidence. I think I may have to confront what I've been running from. The weight of her words hung between them, a stark reminder that even amidst transformation, shadows of doubt lingered. Would she truly face the spirit of the past, or would the fears that had held her captive rise again? His heart soared and sank simultaneously, a reminder that real change demanded courage, something they would all have to embrace if they were to forge a new path together. What actions would echo in the room next? Would courage rise to meet fear, or would the shadows bind them once more? Emma took a deep breath, her hands trembling at her sides. You don't understand what I've been through, she confessed, looking down at the ground as if the weight of her past were pulled down by invisible strings. The noise in my head, it's suffocating. I feel like I'm still trapped in that cycle. Jackson wanted to reach out, to reassure her that the shadows of her past could not claim her future. Instead, he opted for silence, feeling the gravity of her revelation sink deep into the crowd around them. The assembly was holding its breath, caught in this moment of vulnerability. Why do I keep running? Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Every time I think I've got it together, every time I think I've moved on, something pulls me back. She paused, the flicker of fear reflecting in her eyes. What if I'm not enough? What if I mess this up? As those words broke free, the old man stepped closer, his presence warm and steady. Child, we all feel that way at times. It's a truth we carry, but it doesn't mean we don't try. Just remember, every step forward doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be taken. The crowd shifted slightly, faces revealing worry and empathy wrapped together. Jackson could see that doubt in Emma's expression, that nagging thought scraping at her determination, exposing the raw edges of her soul. It was more common than anyone cared to admit, though few dared to speak up. Your fear doesn't define you, Emma, Jackson said, his voice stronger than he felt. You've already shown tremendous strength by loving those boys. You're breaking cycles just by being here. He gestured to the crowd. And look at them. They're here because they want to change too. I know it, Emma said, her voice steadying. It's just I'm terrified that the old patterns will rise again, that I won't be able to give them what they need, that I'll fail them. Then how about we do this together? A young woman from the back piped up, her tone a mix of hope and excitement. Let us share our stories, our wounds. We can't heal alone. If we want to be a family, we have to lift each other's burdens. There was a rustling in the crowd as heads nodded, encouragement blooming among them. Jackson felt a spark of resolve flicker through the assembly like the soft light of dawn breaking over a long, dark night. Everyone had a part in this, everyone had their own fears, heartbreaks, and dreams. I can start, Emma said, and for the first time, she looked into the eyes of those around her, surrendering to the moment. My father left when I was young. My mother struggled just to make ends meet. I didn't know how to trust, let alone love. Her voice shook, and Jackson felt the earnest emotion of her words permeate the air, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. But I want to try. As she spoke, Jackson could see her courage painting a thread of connection through the crowd. Each story shared seemed to weave them closer together, building a new foundation where before lies had roamed. They were finding solace in shared truth, allowing their scars to be the stepping stones towards something greater. That's it. The elderly man exclaimed, echoing the excitement. Let your stories be your armor, not your shackles. Let this gathering be a testament to our strength. In that moment, a wave of energy pulsed through the room, belief, courage, and the fierce desire to transform fear into growth. But just as the atmosphere thickened with this newfound connection, the door creaked open again. A voice broke through, heavy with urgency. I came to warn you. It's not safe out there, someone's watching. The warning echoed like a bell toll, shattering the fragile hope that had just been built. Jackson felt a rush of adrenaline, his heart racing, as he scanned the room. What do you mean? He asked, his brow furrowing. Emma took a step back, eyes wide, the brightness of their moment overshadowed by an ominous shadow creeping in. The lingering sense of danger loomed over them, strange and unsettling. Who was watching? How would they respond? Would their courage stand tall when faced with a threat that could topple them all? Change was on the horizon, but at what cost? Jackson's heart raced as the weight of the newcomer's words settled in. The vibrant energy of shared stories flickered like a candle in a gale. Heads turned in anxious whispers, eyes darting toward the door from which the warning had come. Emma's face was an open book of emotions, fear, disbelief, and a flicker of defiance behind her wide eyes. What do you mean, someone's watching? Jackson pressed, stepping forward. He could sense the tension thickening like fog in the air, obscuring their fragile newfound bond. The young woman who had brought the warning stepped fully into the light. She wore a look of urgency, her hair a wild halo around her anxious face. I don't know how to explain it, but there are rumors. People have been talking about those who gather here. They don't like what we're trying to do. They want to silence us. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jackson caught a glimpse of Emma's breath hitching, her throat bobbing as she struggled to make sense of it all. He could feel the tremors of unease coursing through her. Why would anyone want to silence us? She asked, her voice rising slightly in pitch, trembling around the edges. Because you're creating something they can't control, the young woman answered, a spark of defiance igniting in her words. You're sounding alarms they hoped would remain eerily quiet. People don't change without a fight, especially the ones who thrive on our suffering. Jackson could see the wheels turning in Emma's mind. She was torn between fear and the resolute flame of strength that had just begun to burn within her. What do we do? Emma's voice came out lower, steadier now, perhaps gathering more courage with each spoken word. Jackson could sense the resolve beginning to stitch her fears back together like a quilt. The old man stepped forward, his gray hair glinting in the dim light. If we're being watched, then it's time we show them that we won't be silenced. We stand together. We are our own army. The crowd, emboldened by his words, began to murmur in agreement. Their voices unified as if lifting each other up, the sound swelling like a tide rising against the shore. Jackson could feel the determination coursing through him now, propelling him forward. We can't let them break what we've started. Each of us carries scars, but it's those scars that can mend together into strength. Emma nodded, her eyes shining with fierce resolve. We'll share our stories, louder than ever. We stand together, and we won't let fear hold us captive. As they exchanged glances, a powerful energy surged among them, a fusion of hope and defiance sparking life into the gathering once more. They were strong not just for themselves, but for everyone whose voice had been silenced before. Jackson felt his heart beat louder, matching the rhythm of their collective resolve. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside like thunder rumbling ominously in the distance. The door swung wide, revealing a group of shadowy figures standing in the threshold, their eyes glinting with a threatening intensity. Jackson's breath caught in his throat as he realized these weren't just whispers of threats anymore. They were here, a tangible fear baring its teeth. The crowd fell silent, tension wrapping tightly like a coil ready to snap. Emma's gaze shot toward Jackson, their shared understanding forming a bond stronger than words. Are we ready for this? She mouthed, the flickering candle of fear rekindling in her eyes. That he nodded, feeling a surge of strength rising within him. The moment of truth was upon them, and he had no intention of stepping back. Together, they would face whatever storm was brewing on the horizon. But the real question loomed larger as the figures advanced, their intentions unknown. Would they stand united, or would the shadows they feared engulf them all? The shadows stepped closer, their figures becoming clearer, revealing faces set in grim determination. Jackson's pulse pounded in his ears. These weren't just idle threats, they were the embodiment of fear itself, marching straight into the heart of their gathering. The crowd shifted, a wave of nervous energy flowing through them. Jackson could feel the eyes of his fellow gatherers on him. Emma's anxious expression burned into his memory. In this moment, he wasn't just fighting for them, he was fighting for her. Stay together. He shouted, hoping to bolster their unity. We're not afraid. The figures paused, perhaps surprised by the flicker of defiance that shone from their group. Jackson's heart swelled with pride. This wasn't just about standing their ground, it was about standing up for each other. One of the shadowy figures, a tall man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, took a step forward. You think your voices matter? You think you can change anything? His voice dripped with scorn, resonating in the silence that enveloped the room. Emma took a breath beside Jackson, her resolve visible as she stepped forward, her voice echoing in the stillness. We're not afraid of you or your threats. If you want to silence us, you'll have to try harder. The words hung in the air like a challenge, a dare that each heart in the crowd felt. The scarred man narrowed his eyes, shifting his weight slightly. Jackson could see that others behind him were nervously exchanging glances, perhaps reconsidering the path they had chosen. Together we'll speak volumes, Emma continued, compression strengthening her voice. For everyone who has been silenced before us, every story that went unheard. Our truths can't be stifled. The shadowy group seemed to react to her words. There was a moment of hesitation among them, an audible tension rippling through the stillness. With each word Emma spoke, Jackson felt their collective power grow. We won't back down, Jackson added, taking a step forward to stand beside Emma. We've shared too much. This is our home, and we won't let anyone take that away from us. A nervous murmur started among the shadowy figures. The intensity in their eyes shifted, uncertainty creeping in. Jackson took a deep breath and pressed on, our stories are our strength. They can't take that from us. The tension was palpable. The young woman who had issued the warning looked between Jackson, Emma, and the figures at the door, determination etched across her face. She took a step forward, joining their ranks. We are the voices of the unheard. We stand for each other, for the truth that cuts through the darkness. Jackson dared to glance around at their growing impact. Sensing a swell of confidence, heads began to nod in agreement among their own group. The murmurings became more resolute, echoing a familiar rhythm of defiance. It was clear they were beginning to scare the shadows. Another figure, a woman with steel in her posture, tightened her jaw and stepped closer to the scarred man. "We're just as strong as you. You might come with threats, but we come with life itself. Our unity is unbreakable." For a moment, an eerie silence fell as both sides calculated their next move. Jackson felt Emma's hand grip his, grounding him in the tumult of emotions swelling inside him. Together, they were something bigger than individuals, they were a movement. "Make your choice," the scarred man finally spat, his voice low and foreboding. "But know this, you win." Jackson took a deep breath, his heart pounding with the weight of their gamble. "We're already winning," he said decisively, feeling every eye in the room shift to meet his gaze. "We've chosen to stand together, and that's a power you can't extinguish." The tension shifted, the darkness faced with undeniable light. The shadowed figures, once sources of fear, were now merely a reflection of the fight ahead. Just as the air felt charged with potential, a siren echoed outside, a cry piercing through the tension. The shadows looked uncertain, exchanging glances filled with doubt. Jackson felt a jolt of hope surge through him. But what did this new sound mean for their confrontation? Would it be the turning point they needed, or an ominous harbinger of trouble to come? The siren wailed, slicing through the charged atmosphere like a knife. Jackson's heart quickened, and he could see the shadows tightening their stance, their outward bravado faltering. "What's that noise?" one of the figures muttered under his breath, casting quick glances back toward the door. Jackson seized the moment, hoping that the direction of fear was now shifting. "Stay focused," he urged, trying to maintain their front. "This is our fight. We can't let their fear shake us." Emma tightened her grip on his hand, seemingly pulling strength from him as her voice rang out again, steady and resolute. "We're here for a reason. We won't let your threats silence us, no matter how intimidating you think you are." For a moment, the darkness threatened to close in again, the tension thick as smoke. But just behind Jackson, a group of gatherers stepped forward, emboldened by their words and the sound of sirens in the distance. Hope seemed to ripple through them like a wave, shoving back against the encroaching shadows. "Enough of this!" shouted the tall man with the scar, his voice cracking under the pressure. "You really think you can take on what's coming? You're just standing in the way." "The way of what?" Jackson challenged, his voice rising above the panic that seeped into the crowd. "Of change? Of the voice that deserves to be heard?" The murmurs around him grew louder, voices mingling, transforming fear into a steady chorus of resolve. They were no longer just individuals, it was as if they had found a shared heartbeat, a rhythm that resembled a rebellion. "Look at them," one of the shadowy figures said, his tone laced with disbelief. "They think they can win. They think they can change things. Let them think." The woman with the steel demeanor replied. "What they don't understand is that every change starts with belief. And what we believe in is stronger than any threat they can make." Jackson's focus shifted to Emma, her unwavering strength fueling his determination. He caught her eye, and in that fleeting second, he recognized the urgency of this moment, the collective fear, the unity, and the power of their truths interwoven like threads in a tapestry. "In that case," the scarred man said, shaky but still defiant, "let us see if you can still shout with the sirens wailing." Just then, a new sound joined the chaotic clamor, a series of approaching footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Jackson's stomach dropped. Had they come to back the shadows? He turned to Emma, anxiety flooding through him. "I don't know who's coming," he said quietly. "But we can't lose this moment. We need to stay united, no matter what." The figures on the other side looked both intrigued and frightened. Jackson could tell they were weighing their options. The crowd behind him held their breath, eyes darting toward the door as the approaching footsteps drew nearer, and then, the door swung open with a creak that echoed like thunder. In stepped a group of uniforms, faces clenched with purpose. A police presence. Jackson's heart sank. Would they protect him and the others, or were they there to enforce silence? Emma's hand squeezed his tighter, her eyes wide with concern, yet resolute. "Stay calm," he whispered to the crowd, but the murmurs erupted into confusion. The shadows shifted, now exuding caution. Jackson understood, they were no longer the only force at play. "Can they silence us?" he asked Emma, his voice quavering. "Or will we find a way?" As the police surveyed the room, Jackson felt the weight of the moment settle over them. Their stories were teetering on the precipice of truth and uncertainty, and every eye was focused on the unfolding scene. What happens now? Will the police be allies or adversaries in their fight? The police officers stepped inside, their presence a double-edged sword. Jackson's stomach twisted as he tried to gauge the mood. Would they stand alongside them in solidarity or crush the uprising with a swift order? The officer in front, a woman with sharp features and soft eyes, scanned the room. The tension hung thick, like a fog that wouldn't lift. Jackson felt Emma's grip tighten around his fingers, but it wasn't just apprehension, there was an unshakable resolve behind her gaze. "Why are you here?" An unfamiliar voice broke through the stillness. A man in the back, a stranger, spoke up, his voice challenged but steady. "You're not here to silence us, are you?" The police officer met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "We're here to ensure everyone's safety," she replied, steadying herself. "What's happening here tonight?" "Tonight," Jackson stepped forward, heart racing, "we demand to be heard. We deserve a voice, just as much as anyone else." His words hung in the air, a challenge laid bare. Around him, the crowd stirred. They were emboldened, the sirens outside a reminder that the world was watching. Jackson felt the air shift, a current of determination sparking within them all. "Is this about the protest?" another officer asked, brow furrowed. "We were told there could be trouble. But if there's no threat, there is a threat," Emma interjected. Her voice rang like a bell, cutting through the growing chaos. "The threat is of being ignored. We are tired of being silent while our stories are twisted or erased. We deserve to stand here together and fight for our future." Jackson glanced at the crowd. Hope flickered in their eyes, brightening the darkness encircling them. They were no longer just participants, they were a movement, alive and pulsating with raw energy. The scarred man stepped forward, emboldened by Emma's words. "We want change. We want someone to listen. We've seen what silence does, it breeds more silence. Will you stand with us?" Jackson held his breath, aware of how crucial this moment had become. The officer shifted her weight, exchanging glances with her colleagues. The uncertainty of the situation echoed in their eyes, but so did something else: curiosity. Maybe even interest. "I can't promise anything," the lead officer said eventually. "But I can assure you, I'm here to listen. Help me understand." The air shifted again, this time laced with caution and hope. Was this the breakthrough they desperately needed? Jackson felt a surge of adrenaline rush through him. "Then let us tell you our stories, everyone's stories. The ones that have gone unheard for too long." One by one, voices began to rise in the gathering, each person sharing their truth, their struggles, their dreams. The police officers listened intently. It felt like a dam had burst, the rush of words flooding the room, lifting the weight of despair that had hung over them for so long. But then, just as hope seemed to surge, a loud crash reverberated from outside, the unmistakable echo of shattering glass. The crowd gasped, and Jackson's heart plummeted. Had something gone wrong? "What now?" Emma whispered, her wide eyes searching his. "I don't know," he replied, straining to hear over the din of chaos. "But we can't stop now." As officers rushed to the door, Jackson felt the pulse of fear return. Would their moment of truth turn into another fight? Would they protect the stories that had just begun to emerge? The tension twisted around them, tightening like a noose. Everything hung in the balance. And with every heartbeat, Jackson pondered, would they find liberation or deeper oppression? Jackson stood at the crossroads of fear and determination, a whirlwind of emotions swirling in the air. The sirens screamed outside, shattering the unity they had just begun to build. The crash of glass, sharp and jarring, was a message from the world outside. Their battle was spilling into the streets. That he glanced at Emma. Her eyes held the fire he had witnessed growing within her, a diamond forged under pressure. Just then, the police officer stepped closer, her face illuminated by the freight of urgency settling amongst them. "We need to restore order," she said, quickening her words. "Stay united, but we can't allow violence." Jackson could feel the fear surging through the crowd, a ripple that threatened to tear them apart. "This is our chance," he declared, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Let us not retreat. We stand together, not just for ourselves but for everyone who has been silenced." But the doubt was palpable. People exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping back like shadows at dusk. Just then, a boy in the crowd, a teenager with bright eyes, stepped forward. "I'm not afraid. We can't let them win." His words ignited a spark, a flicker of hope that began to spread like wildfire. "The truth is louder than their glass," Jackson responded, his voice rising above the noise. "We can't let fear silence us. Speak your truths, everyone." One after another, the townsfolk began to share their experiences, the pain, the struggles, the dreams that had been hidden away. With each story, it was as though they were bracing the ground beneath them, strengthening their foundation. A woman spoke of her hardships being a single mother. An old man recounted years of loss, and others followed suit, recounting the burdens they had carried, revealing the power that came from vulnerability. The police officers listened, standing at a distance, absorbing the raw emotions filling the room. Jackson caught a glimpse of the lead officer. Her eyes softened, understanding blooming as the stories unfolded. They were no longer just a crowd, they were a collective heart beating as one, resonating louder than the sirens outside. But then, another crash echoed, reverberating through the assembly, forcing a collective gasp. A group of figures, men with faces masked and eyes full of hatred, stormed in, their intentions as sharp as the shattered glass behind them. The fearful whispers started again, panic rippling through the crowd. "Get back!" one of the masked men yelled, pushing through the people, their mission clear: to dismantle everything they had just built. The police moved quickly, shielding Emma and the others. "Stay behind us," the lead officer commanded. Jackson felt a swell of pride for her bravery. This was what they needed, a united front. "This isn't your fight," she shouted to the intruders, her stance unyielding against their threats. "Step aside, or we will make you," growled the lead intruder, advancing toward them with a menacing glint. Jackson squared his shoulders. He wasn't about to let fear dictate their outcome. "We won't back down," he yelled, projecting strength. "We're not afraid of you. We're here for love, for community." Momentum shifted, bravery surged, and the crowd, inspired, began to close ranks around Jackson, pressing forward to stand side by side with the police. "Love is stronger than fear," shouted Emma, her voice ringing clear and true, startling even her. In that charged moment, Jackson could almost feel the waves of resistance breaking against the tide of hatred threatening to pull them under. It was less about fighting the individuals in masks and more about defying the darkness they represented. With the tension rising, the lead police officer stepped forward again. "We will not allow hatred to shatter peace," she declared, her voice echoing around them. "We're here to protect those who stand for unity." The masked men recoiled slightly, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Jackson channeled that moment. "You can take our glass, our fear, but never our spirit," he shouted, unwavering, even as the air crackled with uncertainty. A collective roar erupted from the crowd, echoing through the air, a sound forged from resilience and truth. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore, but for the love they had cultivated and the lives they had touched. The atmosphere shimmered, thick with conviction. Somehow, amidst the chaos and shouts, hope had taken root deep and flourishing. The crowd had transformed from fear into a powerful entity, clinging to unity like a lifeline. In that electrifying moment, something shifted. The masked figures faltered, their resolve shaken in the face of unwavering love and vulnerability. Jackson glanced at Emma, her eyes shining, alive with a fire that matched his own. "Whatever happens now, we are united," he whispered to her, feeling the pulse of their connection, the strength forged through struggle, and as the police provided a barrier of protection, a crack began to form in the wall of hostility, fractures of empathy cutting through the darkness. It was bold and beautiful, a testament to what courage could conjure in the face of fear. They had become a family, intertwined not just in safety, but in every story shared, the good, the bad, and the transformations that lay ahead. They were unearthing the truth as they faced an uncertain future, armed only with love, ready to embrace the next chapter. Together, and as the dust settled, the sirens faded, replaced by a cacophony of hope that turned whispers to songs of resilience. It wasn't the end of the fight, it was merely the beginning, the dawn of a unified community that vowed to share their stories, ensuring that their voices would finally resonate in the world beyond. Now, in this moment of transformation, Jackson felt a surge of gratitude. None of it was lost on him: the solidarity, the courage, and the strength of belonging. They had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back, and that was something worth fighting for. So, if you felt the power of this story and want to be part of the journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video. Leave a like now to support the channel and feed the algorithm, helping us reach even more hearts. And comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Let us spark discussion. Don't keep this transformation to yourself. Share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this change. This is the moment to show your support for real stories that bring us together.